today I'm excited to talk about this today. So obviously we talk a lot about different, presenting problems of all different kinds as therapists. One of the things we're going to highlight is issues that specifically men deal with. And so we're going to want to highlight on men's issues. I know it's a complicated time, to say the least, for many men, and some of the things that they deal with that maybe they haven't had to deal with in the same way in the past. Even though it might have been in their field, they didn't necessarily, wasn't so present. So kind of in that spirit, what kind of things do you see that men struggle with or have to deal with or choose to deal with in ways that maybe they didn't previously? And what are you seeing from kind of a counseling or mental health standpoint related to that?
Yeah, I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because it's a little anxiety provoking even to have a conversation about this. And so that's what I would say is that that's how people are talking about masculinity in the counseling room, is they're a little nervous to actually share their ideas about it. And
even just giving voice to gender is like, oh shit, is that okay?
Right.
Am I going to offend somebody? Is something going to happen? Is it sensitive, or am I being bold enough, or can I give voice to it without hiding? It's
Absolutely.
Phenomenon.
Yeah, and that the underlying feeling to that is anxiety, I would say. There's just a general anxiousness and unease about it, and so it's created this almost like a confused, I would say like a confusion, and so there's some hesitancy to talk about it, like what does it mean, and I think probably the worst thing is that like it's almost like you get this sense that you can't talk about it, and whenever that happens, you really lose your voice, so to speak. So that's definitely what I'm noticing, and I was kind of curious, what are you noticing in your office?
I see absolutely. I would echo the same thing. I see a lot of I think men. I see a lot of depression. I see a lot of anxiety, and most pronounced, I see a tremendous amount of loneliness around that. And the research kind of backs that up. I mean, I read something the other day that said that basically, men that are alone that in midlife are actually some of the most report some of the biggest feelings of loneliness of anybody else.
Oh wow.
And I think there's that just a fine line of do I open the door for somebody, do I not? And I think that's symbolic and pretty pervasive in kind of all aspects.
Oh yeah.
And then we throw in thoughts about, or statements about toxic masculinity, about male privilege. And these are, although they've always kind of been with us, these are in the spotlight and present now in our culture in ways that I think leave men feeling a little hesitant, a little scared, a little unsure as to how to navigate that while still stepping fully into their manhood.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And really owning their identity. And that fine line it is a razor's edge.
It's a tightrope, right? And you mentioned that loneliness piece, that hit pretty hard, because on some level I can absolutely relate to that, and I know you can too.
Sure.
Is there, it was making me think, like, is there something that that helps men when they're talking about loneliness in your office? Is there something that is helpful to them talking about?
Good question. Well, I think that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this video is to kind of, when you give voice to this, when you name something that's hard to name, I think it's helpful as well. Plus, with men stereotypically, their emotionality, they're really allowed to show two emotions: anger, or they're allowed to feel sad when their dog dies or their horse dies. Right? Particularly in Texas.
Yeah.
And so all emotion tends to get channeled through that. I feel helpless, I get angry. I feel sad, I get angry. I feel bored, I get angry. Right? And so that leaves them without the language oftentimes to kind of name and figure out exactly, to receive that emotional information to figure out how to better advocate for themselves, how to take up space, and kind of what they need, right, more to get out of some of that loneliness. So I think that's one piece, is being able to kind of give voice to that, talk about some of that emotion for them, to get that information to help them better meet the needs, and to really normalize this experience for a lot of men. And I think a lot of men don't really know how to navigate it. Is that what you see? I mean, how do they, what kind of two sides of the coin do you see with this?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the very similar thing. What you're seeing is, you know, how do we talk about this, and mainly because it's like, you know, how do you give voice to something that you know, might remain hidden? You know, so this is like, even just naming the loneliness, I think is healing in some way. It's helpful. So, you know, even us too, just talking about this in front of the camera, you know, that is something powerful too. Just, hey, we're just gonna have a conversation about this, and you know, just kind of acknowledge that, yeah, we're kind of living in a really weird time right now, where the roles are not totally clearly defined, and you know, we're walking on that razor.
That razor's edge.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I think, to me, on one side of the coin is, you know, the toxic masculinity that we hear about.
Oh yeah.
And that's very much in the culture. And then the other side of the coin is kind of the castration of men, you know, emotionally, psychologically. And I see men kind of doing that balance, you know, where there's this kind of rebellious men. It's like, the heck with it, I'm gonna do whatever I want, I don't care. I'm not playing this game. And then I see other men that are going, I want to be extra sensitive and almost kind of feminize myself to be able to manage this and deal with it. And I see both in pain because of it, right? Yeah. And I think part of my hope is that we can cultivate sensitivity and care and authenticity and honesty, while still being able to, you know, completely own and embody our own masculine male identity.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I think like one point that you were bringing up is how to embody the masculinity, and it was making me think, like, you know, going back to kind of what we're seeing in the room, and how like, you know, how do these issues present maybe in relationships? How does it show up in romantic relationships, work relationships, friends, family?
Yeah, the interpersonal.
The interpersonal, yes, because that tends to be where people are kind of having these conversations, that they're talking a little bit about how their roles are within the context of, like partner, friend, and you know, how do they act and behave. And so it's like, how do we embody this healthy masculine energy? And so I don't know if that is a specific question for you, or maybe just a general one, but it's something on my mind.
I definitely see the relationships question come up a lot when it comes to male identity. You know, what does it mean to partner? What does it mean to be a good partner? That's a huge one. That's a significant one. And then this idea of kind of privilege and oppression, and those pieces are more in the culture now. You know, and there's this notion that, you know, the masculine or the male is privilege. The feminine or the female is more oppressed. And because of that, there needs to be some massaging of that power differential to make it more even and clear. But it's not spoken that needs to happen. And obviously sometimes that can be more of an angle for empowerment or abuse on either side of the coin versus equality and partnering.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so what does that look like? How do you navigate that? I think is a very interesting and complicated phenomenon that men are struggling with now, that they didn't probably used to struggle with in the same way.
You know, what you're bringing up, I didn't even think about this until now. But one of the best venues for that conversation to happen is in group therapy. Because I was thinking, you know what, the only place where I see that conversation happening in a neutral setting, where people are actually really engaged and not trying to and hold space for, where you know, people are not trying to destroy the other with their differences and opinions, is the groups that I'm running. I hadn't even thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's where
it's there.
You know, it's there. That's where you can have those conversations. Because you know, in an individual setting, of course, like it's really great to share this stuff. But when you have your own peers in the room and these differences kind of come out, that's where the magic happens. And you know, you can kind of talk a little bit about this tightrope and give voice to it.
Yeah, group is very powerful for that. What are, for the folks out there, you know, that are, you know, men or you know, in relationships with men, what would you say maybe are 3 steps that you know, somebody can take to try to improve, try to become more in their healthy masculine, if you will? What would be your kind of 2 cents or little advice for them?
Ooh,
for something like that to work on?
Well, I would say, okay, the first is to have an image of who do you see as a healthy masculine figure?
Like a model.
You know, a model. You know, go to who you're thinking of. I don't know why I just thought of Tom Hanks for some reason. That face popped into my head.
Watch more Tom Hanks movies. That's the goal.
That's the goal. Yeah. So number one, have an image. You know, because people work really well with images. You know, have a good model for that, and then you know, maybe just you know, think about, you know, what feelings do I typically withhold, and that might be a clue as to like, hey, you know, maybe if I open up a little bit more about these feelings, I can be more authentic and real. Yes, it's a risk, but you know, it's always a risk to be vulnerable. But I think, you know, your delivery and how you talk about, you know, just honest feelings can actually be really enriching for relationships. So I know that's 2, but what about you?
I love that.
Yeah.
I would say that you know, to really own your masculinity, and what I would say is that intimacy does require risk, whether that's intimacy in relationships, intimacy in friendships, intimacy with our culture. And so I would challenge some of the status quo that the undercurrent is that masculinity is in and of itself toxic or in and of itself bad. And I would say that it doesn't have to look like that. Masculinity is energy. It's an alignment. It's a force, and it can look bad, or it can look empowering and positive for folks. It depends how it's utilized. And so I would invite you to own it, to take the risk, to bring it into relationships while simultaneously cultivating, you know, the more feminine aspects of us, our emotions, our, you know, so this balance, our, you know, interpersonal experiences, our empathy, our compassion, our sensitivity. You know, my hope is that doesn't take away from the masculinity, but adds as an adjunct to it.
Oh, love it.
That would be my hope for folks, and to recognize the complexity of it. You know, this is not easy. I mean, we're sitting here, you know, trying to have a conversation about it. It's hard to name. It's moods. It's, oh my God, you know, how do we even discuss it without hurting somebody's feelings, causing, you know, somebody to be upset, those sorts of things. So understand that's going to be part of maybe the dialogue in your head, or part of what you're around, and kind of doing the thing anyway. The other thing I would say is be mindful of your guilt. You know, so sometimes we can own things that aren't necessarily ours to own, while at the same time recognizing that there are and have been men in power and in privileged places, and with that inherent privilege, that have caused absolutely damage and been hurtful to a lot of people. And that's an example of kind of holding both of those realities. So you're holding a couple different realities at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Complicated to do that. Therapists do that all the time. Right? But it's complicated. How do we hold 2 realities at the same time?
Yeah.
You know?
It's so hard.
I trust people, and I want to lock my doors.
Right.
They're both
Yeah.
here.
What's that Michael Scott saying from The Office? I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. Something like that. It's like
that's good.
Yeah, so something like that. But
all right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add before we close?
Oh no, I actually think that was a beautiful note to end on. Just really naming that complexity and the part of just you know owning and embodying this idea that masculinity and femininity is not inherently bad. Like it's an energy, and when you start there, you know, it sounds like you just open yourself up to possibilities as opposed to being very rigid about your beliefs. So that was a great ending note.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Absolutely appreciate
Okay.
you with us.
All right. Bye.